Hey everyone, it's Rob from the Activate Clubs team here, just doing a quick rundown on what is probably the biggest section of reaffiliation, the dreaded template. The other sections, as you might know, are the government governance section, which means having a successful AGM and a full exec team, and reporting your event attendance. Handover, although you can pass reaffiliation without the handover information, all the good execs will do that. But we'll get cracking into the template. You might click into the template for the very first time, and you'll be confronted with crazy spreadsheet, lots of reds, lots of word fail, and no one will blame you for chucking your laptop out and procrastinating until November to start on this. I'd say it's helpful to break things down into sections. I would go with low hanging fruit, which is the events tab. This is very fun. You pretty much just get to reminisce on all the awesome events that you've had this year or thus far. So here we have the example of the Chili Society. So just get to chuck in the event name and the event date. And later on, as you do transactions, things like the event income expenses will auto fill in for you, which is a good reference. So we previously had a memberships tab, but we've actually removed that for 2023 as it was getting pretty difficult for clubs to balance that thing out. And at the end of the day, it wasn't really helping. So the next section that you can go to is the receipts, essentially reminiscing on all the awesome things you purchased that made those events that you just filled in great.
With receipts, it's good to have a consistent labeling or numbering system when filing them away in your folder. There's a bunch of ways you could do this, but as long as it's consistent, it'll be easier for you and anyone reviewing your Reaff to find. Personally, I like the approach of categorizing by event or initiative, so making a numbered folder for your event, and then each receipt is reflected by a subsequent number, as seen in the example of O-Day. So valid receipts include pictures of the thing that you bought. This is a great example because it's literally on top of the item, the type that they got. If you're printing at uni, happy to take something like this because they might not actually print it off for you. And usually the printing costs not that much. Overall, for Reaff, we're just looking for itemized receipts from the supplier or company you bought things from, so we know um, what you got. Uh, doesn't need to be a paid receipt, although, as you might know, for grant applications, it does need to be a paid receipt. So, might as well just keep the one there for both purposes. So, this is an example of a receipt that would get knocked back as invalid. It's just a screenshot of a bank transaction. So, the reason is we don't know what was purchased here at Woolies. It could have been anything. It could have been a pack of cigarettes for all we know, but we want something that's going to show us that it was for the club activity. So please don't submit this because we'll be asking for a receipt, and yeah, we don't want to annoy you like that. If you've lost a receipt, you can upload a banking screenshot, provided that it's accompanied by a lost receipt form. You can find this on our list of templates, and it should be signed by the person who bought the item and the club president or treasurer. In total, you shouldn't have more than $200 worth of lost receipts. But if you do, please just reach out to club's team. We can see what else we can get from you just so we can sign it off. Once you got all your receipts, last thing left for you to do is list them out in the template. This is where your numbering system is going to come in again. And also, you can manually link the receipt to whichever event that it related to. So, section three, this is the transactions. This is really just importing all the transactions from your bank from Combiz. So, you'll do this by going into Combiz and transaction history and filtering for the dates that the reaffiliation period is. It'll be, at least for this year, the 1st of December all the way to the 30th of October. It used to be 30th of November. We've moved things just forward a month. And when you go down, you can export as a CSV file, which will end up being like an Excel. Okay, so this is one of the fiddly bits where you're going to have to format the numbers so you can put them into the transactions template. I would filter from oldest to newest and then create a new column. That's where we're going to put the debits and credits. So your debits are your expenses and your credits are your income, and we'll do a formula so that it's the credit column minus the debit column, and this will make sure that your expenses come up as negative and your credits as positive. Copy and paste the new column as values, and then we'll be able to delete the ones that we don't need anymore. And after that, it will be in the right format, and we'll be able to copy into the template. All right, section 4 now for arguably the most important section, the months tab. This is where we bring everything together and provide a narration on what each transaction was for and which event receipt goes with it. Now, number one focus here is on the club's expenses. You'll have a bunch of money, no doubt, coming into the club from Activate, and that is important to make sense of. But for the purpose of reaffiliation, start with and focus on your expenses. The first thing you should do is go into the month of December. Regardless of whether you have any transactions there, you'll want to fill in the opening bank balance, and you'll get that from your bank account on Combiz. Now we make our way through each month, and we'll see that by some sort of sorcery, the transactions are pulled from the transaction tab, which is really neat. And we'll see there's a bunch of different columns. We have the account column. You can see one for each grant, but the one you'll choose for expenses or revenue that relate to your events is going to be the event and production category. In the next column is for further descriptions. Sometimes the description for the bank isn't going to give much light on what the transaction was for. So here in Chillsock's case, we'll write decorations. And since this was for Ode, we'll click that from the drop down. And lastly, we choose the receipt that we put in earlier from the drop down menu. And we'll do the same for the expenses in different month tabs. Okay, the last thing to mention is a pretty common situation where your club's paid someone, but the amount actually relates to multiple receipts, not just one. In Chile Society's case, they paid Andrew Minutilo $110.90, and this is for three purchases that he made, reflected in the three receipts 1.1 to 3. Woolies, Bucket Hat, Kmart. And so, just like the others, we'll tie this expense to the events production account. But in the description, that's where we're going to go ahead and list out the three receipts that this relates to. I would also add a description too. I know I didn't do that in this example, but I think that'd be super helpful as well. And lastly, you're just going to choose the first receipt from the drop down. And that's pretty much it. Thanks heaps for watching. That should get you 90% of the way through the financial side of the reaffiliation. You may have some issues, and if you do, feel free to book in a drop in with one of the club coordinators. We'll be happy to help you out. But this is Rob signing off from the Activate Clubs team. Peace.